What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, today I had an idea and I want to see what you guys think about this. We could turn this into a series if you guys want, but I wanted to start something called What If. Now, in this season or in this little series, we're going to go over, hypothetical situations that, could have happened in the past or could happen in the future. Just kind of go over how I see them playing out, whether that leads to a Detroit Lions Super Bowl or leads to us going 0-16, and just kind of see, in my opinion, what would have happened if we did a certain action instead of what we actually did, or if we do a certain action in the future. So, for an example, this video is what if the Detroit Lions did not fire Jim Caldwell after the 2017 season? Now, if you guys have any other suggestions for any ideas you want to do, like what if pass interference was called in the Dallas game, or anything like that? What if Barry Sanders didn't retire early? What if Megatron didn't retire early? Anything like that. If you want to see any of that, leave your ideas and suggestions down in the comments below for another what if topics. But with that being said, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day and it makes mine, and I would be very, very appreciative to everybody that chooses to do that. But with that being said, let's get into talking about what if the Detroit Lions didn't fire Jim Caldwell after the 2017 season. Now, before we can make a prediction on what Jim Caldwell would have done in the 2018 and 2019 season, we have to first look at what he did within his tenure with the Detroit Lions. Now, Jim Caldwell was on paper one of the most, or as far as winning percentage, one of the most successful Detroit Lions coaches we've had in a very long time. Under Jim Caldwell, the Detroit Lions went 11-5, not 7-9, 9-7, and 9-7 again. In that span, they lost in the wild card in 2014, they lost in the wild card in 2016, and they were the 7th seed, the first team out of the playoffs in 2017. Jim Caldwell's Lions never finished last place in the division, which is something we cannot say about Matt Patricia. Both years Patricia has been here, we've been the last place team in the division. Under Jim Caldwell, that never ever happened. Now, looking at kind of what they did on offense and defense throughout his tenure, in 2014, the Detroit Lions passed for 602 times versus rushing the ball 396 times. So they passed 60% of the time. In 2015, they passed the ball 632 times and ran the ball only 354 times. So they passed 64% of the time. Getting to 2016, this is the year that Bob Quinn took over as the general manager and wanted to run the ball more. So in 2016, the Detroit Lions passed the ball 594 times and ran it 350 times, only passing 62% of the time, which is lower than 2015. And then in 2017, they passed the ball 570 times and ran the ball 363 times, which was lower than 2016 at 61%. So they were a very pass-heavy offense, but by the end of his tenure, they were starting to transition and run the ball a little bit more than they had at the beginning of his career. Now, obviously, when you have guys like Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Anquan Bolden, Kenny Galladay, and even TJ Jones, who was a very productive wide receiver, you're going to have to air the ball out because there are so many weapons you put around Stafford. That doesn't even mention, guys like Eric Ebron, who was an athletic phenom. Doesn't mention guys like Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah, who were very good receiving backs for us. We put a lot of weapons around Stafford in the passing game, so I think that's why we passed a lot. However, I think we've talked about it several times. You need to have an efficient running game and an efficient defense to win a lot of games. And you can't put it all on Stafford's shoulders, which is what Jim Caldwell seemed to be doing a little bit. But, can you really blame him with all the weapons and the amazing talent that he had at quarterback? You could say that they should have ran the ball more, but they didn't have the talent at running back. They had the talent at receivers and quarterback. So, that's kind of why they passed the ball a lot more. So, looking at Stafford's production and how it either increased or decreased under Jim Caldwell's rule, in 2014, Matthew Stafford had a 60% completion percentage, threw for 4,257 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So a very solid season. However, in 2015, he got better. He had a 67% completion percentage, threw for 4,262 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So 10 more touchdowns and just 1 more interception while passing for more yards. In 2016, Matthew Stafford had a 65% completion percentage, so just a little bit lower than 2015, but he passed for 4,327 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, so a few less touchdowns, but he also threw less interceptions and was not turning the ball over as much. And then in 2017, Matthew Stafford had a 65% completion percentage, throwing for 4,446 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, so the completion percentage stayed the same from 16 to 17. He had more yards, more touchdowns, and the same amount of interceptions. So Matthew Stafford was getting better under Jim Caldwell. Matthew Stafford was improving. He had better completion percentage. He was throwing for more yards every single year. He was getting a better touchdown to interception ratio every single year and was just really becoming a much better quarterback under Jim Caldwell. Now, flipping over to the defensive side of the ball. In 2014, when Jim Caldwell took over, and this wasn't really his team, but he still coached it very, very well. The defense had 42 sacks, 119 quarterback hits, 20 interceptions, a pick six, 14 forced fumbles, 8 fumble recoveries, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, while only allowing 282 points. In 2015, the defense had 43 sacks, 105 quarterback hits, only 9 interceptions, but they did still have a pick six, 17 forced fumbles, 9 fumble recoveries, a touchdown on one of those fumble recoveries, but they did allow a lot more points at 400. Now, in 2016, the defense declined drastically. However, I think this has to do a lot with losing your, star player in Ndamukong Suh, more so than it did Jim Caldwell's coaching ability. The defense took a huge step back, only having 26 sacks, 70 quarterback hits, 10 interceptions, a pick six, 7 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, and allowing 358 total points. Now, in 2017, the defense got up to speed again. They were bouncing back, and they had a very solid season and got a lot of turnovers. They had 35 sacks, 95 quarterback hits, 19 interceptions, 3 pick sixes, 16 forced fumbles, 13 fumble recoveries, 2 fumble recoveries for touchdown, while allowing 376 points. So this defense scored 5 times, and they had, one of the most takeaways in the NFL in 2017. And as I said, they were the first team out of the playoffs. They were the 7th seed in 2017. So they were right there on the cusp of making the playoffs once again. And if they made the playoffs, everybody should have watched out, because that defense was nasty. They were getting a ton of turnovers. I mean, they were forcing fumbles, getting interceptions. As I said, they scored 5 touchdowns. This defense scored 5 touchdowns and gave up less points than, several other defenses under Jim Caldwell's rule. So this defense was getting back up to speed. They were getting better. They had one down year, which, is going to happen when you lose a star player like Ndamukong Suh, and I believe Ezekiel Ansah in that year struggled with injuries also. But then in 2017, when he had a chance to really bring people back in, retool this defense, retool the defensive line, they got much better again, and they were starting to improve again. Bob Quinn just kind of tore that down because he wanted his guy. There wasn't really a good reason. The defense was getting, it was elite, and then it kind of took a dip, but it was getting back up to being a very solid, borderline elite defense. Matthew Stafford was getting better every single year. The rushing game wasn't really improving, but they were trying to run the ball more. They were trying to improve as a rushing team. And really, if you look at the stats and look at what Jim Caldwell did, there was no reason for Bob Quinn to get rid of this guy, other than the fact that he wanted Matt Patricia. He was dead set on Matt Patricia. He wanted him to be the head coach, and for no reason other than they're best friends, Bob Quinn fired Jim Caldwell and hired Matt Patricia to be the new head coach, tearing everything down and restarting from the bottom pretty much. Moving on to what I actually think would have happened if Jim Caldwell had stayed the head coach, there's a couple things that I want to go over, and I will explain it. I think it's very realistic to think that Tyrell Austin would stay the defensive coordinator. He was doing a very good job, coaching an elite defense. He was here for all 4 years that Jim Caldwell was, and apart from the, weaker 2016, they had a very elite defense, a very, solid, getting a lot of turnovers, getting a lot of pressures, getting a lot of sacks. And this defense was, maybe not elite, but it was still very good and was serviceable enough to win football games. And I think Tyrell Austin stays here. Matt Patricia doesn't come in and bring in his defensive coordinator, doesn't bring in Paul Pasqualoni. If Jim Caldwell stays, he's going to keep his guys, he's going to keep his coaching staff, and the defense is going to stay the same, which is much better than what we have right now. I think Jim Bob Cooter still gets fired. I think that, he was an okay offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, not a great one. And I think we still find a way to sign Darrell Bevell or another offensive coordinator. But for the case of this, I'll say Darrell Bevell because, that's how it played out in real life. So I still think we find a way to sign Darrell Bevell, and Matthew Stafford still gets that better offensive coordinator to work with. If Jim Caldwell stays, I think 100% we win a division title, whether that be in 2017 or 2018. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy for this, but let me explain my reasoning behind this. Now, people say Jim Caldwell couldn't win big games, but when he was the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, he went 14-2, winning the division and leading them to a Super Bowl. And then the following year, he won the division title again in Indianapolis. So he's won division titles for other other NFL franchises before, so it's not like he's never been able to do it. And then in his tenure with Detroit, the 2014 season, we were one game behind the Green Bay Packers. It all came down to Week 17, a big matchup versus the Green Bay Packers, and we lost the game by 10 points. We lost the division by 2 whole drives and 10 total points. If we put up 10 more points, we win the division for the first time since 1993, and the Detroit Lions win the NFC North for the first time in franchise history. Now, that's okay, but, 2 possessions, that's still, a pretty big margin in a football game if you want to be division champs. Well, fast forward just 2 years later, and we're in the same situation again. We're tied with the Green Bay Packers in, division. We're both 9-6. We come down to a Week 17 matchup versus the Green Bay Packers in Ford Field, and this time we still lose, but we lose by 7 points. We lose by less than we did in 2014. So he's getting better. He's getting, so much closer. Jim Caldwell is this close from winning a division title for the Detroit Lions. And I think that even whether it be 2018 or 2019, he's going to find a way. He's going to get it done. Third time's the charm. It comes down to the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions once again, whether it be in 2017 or, maybe not 2017, but it comes down to the Detroit Lions and one other team. And finally, the Detroit Lions, probably more likely in 2018, but the Detroit Lions find a way to finally beat the Packers in Week 17. They finally find a way to win the division, and I think it's very realistic that Jim Caldwell wins a division title for the Detroit Lions if he is still here. One more thing, I want to add. I think they win a playoff game, and I think it's the year that they win the division. I think, if you're a division champion, obviously, unless you're the 4th seed, you're probably going to be playing somebody that's inferior to you. Most likely, obviously, you could play the 11-5 Seahawks in the wild card, and they could still be better than you. But more likely than not, if you are a division champion, you are playing a team that is inferior to you in the wild card. And, I think they find a way to win that game. Now, I still think they lose in the next round. I still think they lose in the divisional. I don't think they win a Super Bowl or do anything crazy, but I still think that they're much more competitive than they are right now. I think they win a division. I think they win a playoff game. Matthew Stafford starts getting the respect because he's won a playoff game now. Jim Caldwell is looked at as a very successful head coach for the Detroit Lions and one of the better ones that we've had in recent years. And, the Detroit Lions aren't talked about as being this lackluster franchise that always fails. The Detroit Lions are looked at as playoff contenders and possible Super Bowl contenders, going into the 2020 season with a fantastic defense put together by Terrell Austin and, a very good and still improving Matthew Stafford every single year under Jim Caldwell and Darrell Bevell. So that is what I think happens if we retain Jim Caldwell. Maybe a little optimistic. I tried to stay unbiased, but obviously I like to think optimistically. I'm a very optimistic person, and I like to think that, Jim Caldwell gets it done on the third try. I like to think Jim Caldwell, whether it be 2018 or 2019, gets his team put together, puts all of his guys in the right spot for a miracle run, and they find a way to win the division, whether that be over the Bears in 2018 or over the Packers in 2019. I think they find a way and they win a division. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think if we kept Jim Caldwell, we'd be in a better spot than we are right now with Matt Patricia? Do you think we win a division, a playoff game, or do you think we're still, a bottom dweller in the NFL and the media still talks about us as one of the worst franchises in NFL history? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But with that being said, that is all I have for you today. As I said, if you do have any other suggestions for any what ifs, whether that be what if pass interference was called, what if Barry Sanders didn't retire, what if Calvin didn't retire, or anything along those lines, let me know that down in the comments below. But with that being said, that is all I have for you today. That is all I have for you guys today. If you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. If there is Lions Baseball for tomorrow, I'll obviously make a video letting everybody know. But until then, that is all I have for you guys today. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see all of you in the video tomorrow. Bye, guys.